You made a comment in a different podcast where you said that Mossad operates today like the CIA operated in the late 50s, 60s.
Yeah, so the reference there is that CIA prior to 9/11, CIA in the 60s and 70s, did not suffer significant oversight.
Okay.
They had a small group of people that could take very high risk operations in order to accomplish whatever priorities the president set in place. That's essentially what the Mossad is now. Argo. Yeah. That's what Mossad is now. Mossad is a small group with almost no oversight that executes in any way that they need to the direction of their
We keep hearing they're like the most effective, I mean, we meaning idiots like me, the most effective intelligence agency. Is that true? And is that why?
Yeah, so
tell us about your colleagues.
So I'm going to be particular about language, right? Because effective has different meanings.
They know the most, it seems.
So I would argue that they don't.
Oh, okay.
So first of all, Israel and Mossad is very, very focused on just a handful of priorities, basically threats to the homeland.
Okay.
Everything outside of that handful of priorities, they don't care about. Mm-hmm. They're not a global superpower. The United States is a global superpower. We don't have a handful of priorities. We have dozens upon dozens of priorities. Mm-hmm. We have to know what's happening between two allies in Europe. We have to know what's happening about, rice trade in Southeast Asia. We have to know whether or not there's going to be another coup in Africa. We care about all that shit. Mm-hmm. So we have to take our budget and our officers and know everything that's happening in the world.
And Mossad just has to focus on threats to the homeland.
Right.
Here's a question.
How did they miss October 7th?
Bang.
So
did they miss October 7th?
One of the ways where October 7th is parallel to 9/11 is that in hindsight, what people have collected is that there was information that was communicated up the chain of command that was never acted upon to prevent the attack.
But if it's a small group of people, it makes sense in CIA. You have a real thing against the word "the," so I just keep saying CIA.
I appreciate it.
In CIA, it was a scattered budget. Like you said, there's no real oversight. Mossad is a small group. So, to address some conspiracy theories out there, how do they not communicate with each other within a small group that there's an imminent threat, potentially, to the homeland?
So there were three groups that were involved. Three Israeli organizations that were involved in the October 7th incident. Mossad, because Mossad's charged with collecting foreign intelligence that addresses threats against the homeland. Mm-hmm. So their job is they were the ones that should have known what Hamas was doing, who the Hamas leaders were, what the supplies were, timing, etc. Right? So that would have been Mossad. But the actual border itself was protected by the Israeli military, not by Mossad. Mm-hmm. So anything about imminent attack, anything about locations, anything about security and defense, the IDF would have had to handle that. So Mossad would have had to communicate with the IDF, and the IDF would have had to communicate with Mossad.
Okay.
And then you have internal security, which is handled by a group called Shin Bet. Shin Bet is basically like the FBI for Israel. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Anything that happens inside the country, not on the border, not outside of the border, anything that happens inside the country should be Shin Bet's purview.
Okay.
So you've got three organizations that would have had to all communicate almost seamlessly in a short period of time to prevent October.
So you don't think there's any real validity to the idea that Netanyahu maybe allowed this to happen so he could stay in power?
I think there's always a possibility, but the probability speaks to miscommunication, mishandling, and a poor series of events.
I understand that is the most logical and probable of all solutions. Okay.
Wait, one thing. But things going on in Gaza, since that's technically part of Israel, wouldn't that be Shin Bet's responsibility?
And this is why, it's a great question, and this is why things get really mixed up in Israel, because you have all these international players, some of which are trying to protect Palestinians, some of which are trying to protect Israel, all of which are trying to find peace. And then you have these areas that are kind of carved out that are supposed to be like safe havens for the Palestinians, but they're not really safe havens because they're still managed by the Israelis. Mm-hmm. And then Israeli law shouldn't necessarily apply to Palestinians, but it does because they're on land that the world kind of views as Israel. So it gets really fucking complicated, right? Who does have jurisdiction? Is it the Palestinian Authority? Palestinian Authority is kind of the recognized authority for the Palestinian people. Or is it Hamas? Hamas is the group that was voted into power by the Palestinian people over the Palestinian Authority. Woo, fucking. And then the United States, the world sees Hamas as a terrorist organization. Sort of. 12 countries in the world see Hamas as a terrorist organization.
Really? I thought we all kind of saw Hamas as
No,
terrorists.
that's Western
Why do the
narrative.
others not see it as a terrorist
Even the
organization?
EU doesn't see them as a terrorist group.
Okay, is it just because they're liberal cucks, or like what is that? Like what is the? I'm serious. Why would they not?
Because the definition of terrorism is really loose. It's
Okay.
it's defined by each country, and some countries see Hamas's activities as terrorist activities. Some countries see Israel's activities as terrorist countries. In Iran,
Two things can be true.
the United States is a terrorist organization.
Is the Taliban recognized as or not recognized as a terrorist organization by many countries?
That's what's funny is the Taliban is seen as a terrorist organization almost universally.
Oh, really?
Which is why it was so significant when President Bush said, we will not negotiate with terrorists. And then there we were sitting at the table with the Taliban.
Right. Interesting.
Was Hamas a terrorist organization before October 7th?
It
Those
was
12.
Yeah, it
yes.
was identified. It was
okay.
identified as a terrorist organization in the United States for many, many years because it uses extremist activity to cause injury to civilians with the intent of changing policy. That's essentially the definition, the United States definition of terrorism. Even if you look up right now, is Hamas a terrorist organization or an insurgency? Because insurgency was another term that we invented in Afghanistan and Iraq. If you look up that term, even on Google, the Google machine, the Google AI will be like, this is a very complicated topic.
Oh, wow.
Because depending on your point of view, it is both an insurgency and a terrorist group.
One person's terrorist, another person's freedom fighter. Basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.